then listen. Let's not get caught. What are you talking about?
Why doesn't the hero reveal himself and tell us your true name? You do have a name. My name is Gladiator. How dare you show your back to me? Slave, you will remove your helmet and tell me your name. My name is Fun My Comic, and I represent all the campaigns you shadow banned and kicked off your website. Huh? Creators that just wanted to fund, that wanted to be left alone. And we will build a website that is going to bury you all. Oh crap.
Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it the gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet? Has to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what cost others. As for me, give me liberty or give me death.
Get stupid. I shoot an arrow like Cupid. I use a word that don't mean nothing, like lift it. I sang on Do What You Like, and if you missed it, I'm the one that said just grab.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there, this is Cooper from Telepathic Bunny Comics. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. Today's show, the What's Next, episode 9. We're going to talk about the wisdom of the crowd. Now, before we go too much further, a little refresher about let me bring it back up. Hold on. A little refresher about exactly who we're dealing with here. All right, here it is.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
Okay. So now that's the attitude that we get from the mainstream. All right. The mainstream says, here's the art. It doesn't matter if you like it or not. Here's the art. And if you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. Okay. In other words, they're rejecting the opinions and the views of their audience. Now, what's the issue there? Well, the issue is the people that actually purchase the products, the people who actually push the products, the people who are actually fans of the IPs are the ones who are the impetus behind the whole entire thing. And so when you remove that and divorce yourself from the opinions of the crowd, then you get pretty much what you've gotten in the last 5 years. So let's talk about that. And to help me talk about that, I've got two gentlemen. I think they're gentlemen. I'm going to assume they're gentlemen. So they look like gentlemen. So I don't want to misgender anybody. Okay. But first of all, we got Mr. Shadow Punk from Live from Arkansas. You're muted. Yep.
I think you muted me because you're
I
the
didn't
crowd.
mute
You're the
you.
crowd.
I didn't mute you. Well, anyway, this is fake news. I did not mute this man.
What?
He muted himself.
What?
He muted himself. Okay. Yep. Anyway, next gentleman, Mr. Furry from Arizona, also known as Wookie.
Hola.
Hola. Okay. Well, he is in northern Mexico, so
It's yeah. You're not far from the truth there, son.
yeah, I wish it was.
Really?
Yeah, honestly. All righty. So over here, let me get caught up on the chat. Mr. Wook Creators Outlet says wisdom, laugh.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay. That twat waffle. He's talking about lovely Kelly Sue DeConnick, the lady with the glasses that we just played. Live from Applesauce.
Great personality.
Okay. Great personality. Yeah. I want to buy books from that chick. I swear.
You know what?
I mean,
Whenever I see that video of her, the 1st thing I think is that she's one of those women that has perfume that reeks. That's what comes because I've met women like that, and you're like, their sensibilities are all screwed up, and it translates. Yeah. That's one of the outward ways it translates, right? Is that they have awful perfume.
Put that patchouli stink on and evacuate the room.
Right. I mean, I'm certain that's the case.
Patchouli. Yeah. The sentence. Otherwise, I call eau de lesbian. Eau de lesbian.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I call patchouli. Anyway, so.
Oh, Daniel, thank you.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, you can tell that from the picture, right? It's like,
I'm telling you, I'll tell you what. If I meet her at a convention or something, I'm gonna take note. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna go up there and find out.
I can see Shadow Punk walking up to her, going, "Yep,"
doing the old Joe Biden sniff.
Totally.
It'd be
totally bizarre. I'll get arrested.
I thought you would smell that way. Anyway,
I'm telling you, I will report back.
There you go. Yeah. Confirmed. Definitely. Anyway, we got Crom in the chat. What's up? Holy crap.
Crom.
Senor Crom.
Yep. What Babaloo Bop. Yep. I tried to master the stank.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
She probably
Well, I
smells
mean,
like.
it's kind of like you see a skunk stripe, you don't pick it up, and if you see a skunk stripe, you don't pick it up and pet it. You know,
No,
you just don't.
I mean, she looks like she has that scent of burnt hairspray, patchouli, and cat litter.
And desperation. All right. Anyway,
there are people that when they wear like cologne or perfume, you smell them ahead of time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not sure how aerodynamically
That's how
how that works, but it's a known phenomenon.
Well, yes, and also in the cryptozoology world, when you smell something that reeks like dead bodies and skunk, it's probably a Sasquatch.
yeah,
Right.
there you go.
Right.
You go.
Run for
Smell
the
it
hills.
before you see it.
Right.
Oh man. I don't know about you guys, but when I heard that first heard that opinion, my reaction was yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you're committing suicide. You do know that, you're committing, IP suicide.
Don't buy
you
my
can't do
book.
this. You exactly. I mean, because anytime you tell somebody don't buy something, they're going, well, okay.
That's like me telling
somebody
a customer not to buy a product that I'm supposed to be peddling. Yeah, my boss would probably shit can me on the spot. Yeah.
Right. There you
That's
go.
actually an excellent point you just made there, Wookie, because the truth is a lot of this stuff, this nonsense we've been witnessing for the last 15 years or whatever, 10, 15 years, it's all supported. There's no way the market would ever support that stuff, right? So they are guarded by the system.
Well, the ESG money made them feel like they no longer needed the customer, okay? And so they could just impunity that ESG was going to carry them until they found this mythological new audience that they approved of.
Venture capital. It's all that venture capital money that these people just threw at them to do whatever. And now that money's running out and people are losing their ass because no one's
all
buying
these
stuff.
news outlets are shutting down right now.
There's
all that flood of venture capital that went into them, and a lot of this came from through various sundry back channels through ActBlue and BlackRock.
Right. That's
go down ActBlue. You know where all that stuff we sent to Ukraine went to? Well, there's this little thing called FTX, and then there's this little thing called the anyway, don't go that rabbit hole. Go down there.
Right. But either way, that these people in the comic book industry are held up. They're not worthy enough to do those jobs. No. And even if they fail, they're going to hold them up for decades. Yeah. Right? Because they serve a purpose.
Well, that particular unibrow wrote a book called Bitch Planet that actually was nominated for an Eisner.
Really?
And, yeah, Dean James and his crew over there on Comics Mate channel did a read through of Bitch Planet, and no matter how bad you think it sounds like it would be, it was worse.
Really,
it's the worst, foulest document that I could ever conceive of. And she won Eisner for that.
Okay.
Well, I don't know who the YouTuber was, but there's actually several of them. It could be part of the F&T crew back a couple of years back, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They were actually pulling sales numbers of all these woke shit comics that were gathered around the United States, total sales. I think this had to do with something when Diamond went kaput.
Well, there was actually an organization that was I think it was called something Cron. Okay. Anyway, but they actually would report the numbers, but then suddenly they stopped reporting numbers about 3 years ago.
You know what? I was just going to say it's been about 3 years since I've seen anybody have any videos with numbers on them because they were so damn bad.
Yeah, they just stopped reporting them.
They just stopped reporting. Yeah,
that's what they do.
And before that, though, before they stopped
Nothing
reporting them,
interesting
they were pumping up American comic numbers in a
Yes.
subcategory with crowdfunding, and they're also were pumping it up with the manga sales, and they're also pumping it up with scholastic sales. They're all like
Right.
they were like Comicron. That's it,
Yeah.
Comicron. Thank you, Cron. Yeah, Comicron. I can't remember. Indicron is belongs to our buddy Pixel Trader, and I keep getting those mixed up.
Yeah. I know that they were trying to boost those numbers because of the fact that anime was crushing them. You know, in the real world, they were getting crushed, and there were still books on shelves, and a lot of comic book shops were. And then you know what? There has been a ton of comic book shops have gone belly up, out of business.
It's worse than you
because they
think.
couldn't sell. Yeah, exactly.
All we know is what's reported in these rags.
Right, exactly.
So we don't even know the real numbers of how many comic shops are going under. And and just from reports that I've heard, it's like comic shops are getting rare.
Sure.
Yes,
even like states that have like concentrations of a population, comic shops are just getting rare now.
Yep, and they are,
and it's that's the distribution arm of comics, and because Diamond pulled everything out away from the crowds, pulled them away from the crowds, pulled them into these boutique outlets called comic shops. And it's like, so you had to seek them out.
Pulled them out of the gas stations and the 5 and dime stores and the newsstands. Because that's where I got all my comics.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people discovered them just walking by and said, "Ooh, that's cool."
Right.
Spinner racks
and they took that out. They took that away.
Or the gas station or whatever. You know, you go in there and you get a candy bar and a soda, and oh, look, there's a comic book. You know, in the 70s and the early 80s, that's where all my comics came from that I got was on a spinner rack in some shop and some store, you know?
Yeah. Well, what Crom will tell you over there.
Go ahead.
I've heard him say this. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Continue, because you're making a good point.
Okay, what Crom will tell you, and he said this multiple times, is that the default for any person is to not buy something. That's the default, because buying something is basically sacrificing currency that you've earned in some way, shape, or form to purchase a product. Okay, and so when you tell anybody, well, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. That's their default. Okay.
That's
mission accepted, you know. Not, you know, it's a nice plan, Cotton. Let's see how this works out for you, you know. I didn't get that.
You know what's funny? That's such a true statement, and you think that the people that she works for should have fired her right away for saying something like that.
And it goes
Jared.
with all the other commodity industries, or, you know, like even in groceries, the same way. You know, if someone hears something negative about a certain brand of whatever, you know, they're not going to buy it. They may just skip the whole category altogether, or they'll buy like store brand or something, whoever's cheaper. You know, and a lot of people don't know that in the grocery industry over the last, 6-8 years, the packaging sizes decreased in the depth. Like, say, cereal, like your cereal boxes, they're not as thick as they used to be, deep, but they're still as wide and as tall. So you get less product for the same price you paid a few years ago. Same way with coffee, same way with peanut butter.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to just get on a rant.
This word of wisdom from Crom. Oh, that's fine. Word of wisdom from Crom. Nobody's walking around with a stack of money in their hand waiting to throw it in someone's face. Okay?
Exactly.
All right.
That is true. That is true.
Exactly.
Giggity. That's what she said. Yeah, there you go.
Giggity. Yeah.
Giggity. That is true, unless you tune in and you watch Ethan talk about selling race cars. Right? And they want like multiple cars with Cyberfrog on it. Right? I'm like, you got something when people want it that bad.
Before we get sidelined here, let's
Okay.
move away from that particular topic. All right.
Okay, race cars out of the picture.
Yeah. No. Let's just say Ethan's out of the picture there.
Okay.
We'll focus on customers here. All right. So customers, basically, the philosophy of any customer is like, prove it. Show me why I need this. It's called top of funnel. It's called top of funnel content. That's what I learned from Trump. And so basically, you got to reach that customer. Now, that there's a presupposition here that the mainstream no longer has, that we've got to have. No, it's not race cars too controversial. It's just that's off the subject.
It is race cars. Race cars are too controversial.
It's off the subject.
They are.
It's just off the subject. Okay. Yeah. So, hell creators. Hey Zayd, what's up? All right. Anyway, no, don't you dare distract me.
What?
Right. Okay. So it's called top of funnel content. That just means that you basically want to get somebody's. You want to get them by the heart. Okay. You want to get their attention. You want to get their emotions. You want to say you need this, and then you want them to say, yeah, I need that. Okay. There's a presupposition that the mainstream used to have that they no longer do, and that is the customer knows what they want.
Right.
Okay. At the wisdom of the crowd, the customer knows what they want. Okay. And it used to, marketing was all about figuring out what that customer wants and trying to get them to talk to you and let you know what they want. But somewhere along the way, the mainstream got it in their head that they could dictate what that is. And that, no, you want this. You want this. No, I don't want this. Well, if you don't want this, then there's something wrong with you. Let's go down the istinphobe, there's something wrong with you if you don't want this. Okay. But the customer says, I know what I want. You can't, don't tell me what I want. I know what I want.
Right.
Okay. And so what's happening now is this renegotiation that's popping. And I knew I'd get this man on there.
I've been quoted several times now, and I'm beginning to worry when I'm going to be besmirched at some point here. So I get on.
We are not worthy to have the great and powerful Crom on this.
There we go.
Trust me, there's worth is not the issue.
Well, all right. What got me thinking along this lines? It's this clip. I'm going to play it. It's about 7-minute clip. So hang in there, guys. Well, but trust me, it'll be worth it. So this comes from Benny Johnson. He did an interview with the guys from Angel Studios. And Angel Studios is this independent outfit that has, in multiple ways, the last few years, given the mainstream a black eye. For instance, they put a $25,000 movie out against Flash, and it went up third in the box office on their Easter weekend.
Oh, wow.
Okay, Flash, as you know, it's about $3 million movie, a $300 million movie. Yeah, right. And so they also put a $17 million movie made by a bunch of people in South America that Disney kept on the shelf for 5 years. They put it up against Disney, Indiana Jones 5 on 4th of July weekend, and kicked their ass by over. I can't remember how much it was. It was like 7,000 or something like that, and 2,000 less theaters over 4th of July weekend. Totally kicked their ass. I mean, this was Disney's tent pole. They had been pushing this thing for months, and they came through the door with just a bare bones grassroots campaign and kicked their ass with 2,000 less theaters. And when they went wide, when all those 2,000 theaters picked them up, they really started kicking some ass. And so the movie went well over $100 million on a $17 million budget. So how did they choose it? How are they choosing these projects that are giving the industry a black eye? Well, this clip's going to talk about it. And if you want to see the original interview, it's pinned to the chat, and it's also in the description. But Let me play it right now. Here we go.
I think that the reason that they said this, the movie critics called you the giant slayers, is because these studios have become giants. They have become so top-heavy. They have become unstable. And they are so big that they've lost the agility and the ability to actually create anything that anyone wants to go see. They've lost their usefulness. And that's obviously present in the box office numbers. This is a reality of the release schedule for Hollywood this year, which is like nothing. And also a reality of an industry that's tied down by labor strikes, by insane and racist rules, and by just sort of an internal collapse. And so that seems like an industry prime for the picking.
Yeah, and it's when we look at it, we see the issue in Hollywood as the gatekeeper problem. We call it the gatekeeper problem. It's not the craftsman. It's not the average person working in Hollywood. There's hundreds of thousands of craftsmen working on great art.
Yeah.
But the gatekeepers are where the issue's at. And there's this little group of, a dozen people who make decisions in each studio about $100 million budgets based on their bubble worldview.
Is it really that small?
Yeah,
Like 12 people?
You could have less
usually.
of that.
It's
to
usually
greenlight
less.
a film.
These $200 million films, $300 million films are greenlit by less than a dozen people. And they're making these decisions based on the bubble of their worldview, which is that Hollywood is like LA is just a giant bubble.
Yeah, of course.
And so the filmmakers themselves, the craftsmen, they want to work on great art. And it doesn't matter to them if it's great art that praises God or great art that's as long as it's great art, they'll work on it. If it's nihilistic, they'll work on it. Whatever, as long as it's like just gives them their craftsmanship, right? They want to exercise that craftsmanship. And the gatekeepers are the ones that are guiding this culture in a direction that nobody really wants. Like they're not making movies for people.
No.
Right?
No.
Saltburn is not a movie made for real people.
No. No human wanted to see the Marvels.
Yeah.
Okay? No human wants to see Rachel Ziegler as Snow White. Right?
Yeah.
But rewind back 200 years to the Brothers Grimm who wrote Snow White, and they also don't want to see Rachel Ziegler. And Rachel Ziegler has gone out of her way to talk Walt Disney.
It would appear that Rachel Ziegler doesn't want to see Rachel Ziegler.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
If you just listen to the words she says, she doesn't want to be cast as Snow White, which is so true. It's funny because it's true.
Yeah, it's this very strange
despises
paradigm.
the source material.
I think that's probably a little bit of the problem. Is some of that gatekeeper mentality has this. Jeff called it a bubble, but there's this element of that they know best, right? Mm-hmm. That they understand what we should like, and that they're on a different level in terms of their intellectual behavior. One of the things that we've kind of based our entire business model off of, there's a book called The Wisdom of the Crowds, and it goes into the concept that when given the right parameters and the right sandbox, the crowd can actually make better decisions than most any expert. Than executives.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives many examples of this. One being Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Remember that show back in the day where it's like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Regis? And there was the 3 lifelines that everybody watched the show, and one was 50-50. You could split cut out 2 of the answers. Another one was ask an expert or a friend. And the third one was ask the audience or the crowd.
Guess which one wins?
Guess which one was the highest probability of giving you the right answer?
Fascinating.
Ask the audience.
Yeah.
Ask an expert was 62% of the time. Ask the audience was 91% of the time.
If you take this concept and in the wisdom of crowds, it goes through and gives you the principles that have to be in place in order to make good predictions with the crowd, and you build that into a system, then we believe we can pick movies way better than any Hollywood elite.
Can you explain that?
So you get what we've done is we have 260,000 people they've become members of what we call the Angel Guild. And the Angel Guild is this group of people who either pay for a membership in the community or they've invested in a project, like a crowdfunded project. And they get to watch all the submissions that come into Angel Studios. This guild picked Sound of Freedom. It picked His Only Son. It picked Cabrini, which is coming out here next month.
His Only Son and Sound of Freedom were both rejected by major studios.
Yes.
Because His Only Son, for whatever reason, wasn't, it wasn't the right film, or they didn't catch the vision of it, and then it just all of a sudden pops up on the Angel Guild as this super high score, and we went, whoa, because we don't tell the Guild what the budget is. We don't tell them who directs it.
Yep.
We don't tell them any of that material.
Can I stop for a second?
Yep.
These are a quarter of a million people who have access to the movies that you may or may not release.
Yeah, they just have them inside the Angel app on their phone.
And they're watching these and rating them.
Yeah, they're watching them and they're just casting a very simple vote. How would you feel if this never became an Angel movie?
We now get 21 submissions a week.
Yeah, very disappointed, somewhat disappointed, not disappointed. We get 21 films submitted a week on average, and they go and vote on them, and most of them, like 98% of them, never make it through the process because the guild's very strict.
Yes.
But we discover these super winners, the Sound of Freedom or His Only Son was number 3 in the box office last Easter and ended up in the top 10 on Amazon Prime for 3 weeks at Christmas time. And
this is a little $250,000 film that pops up because the audience says this is amazing. It's very good storytelling.
It's built like a $5 million
It looks like a $5 million film, but the point is it was fun to watch it not only get into the top 3 in the box office, but then when it went on to Amazon and lands in the top 10 of Amazon, it's competing
like ahead
with
of The Flash.
It's competing against 40, 50, $100 million films. $250,000. But again, the audience was able to see before any executive possibly could that there's a really compelling story in here.
Alrighty. So, what do you think about that, gentlemen?
Interesting.
Have you read the book?
I've ordered it. I'm probably going. I got it on my Audible. I'm going to listen to it. But you obviously have read it, right?
I worked at a company that was built precisely on the book in 2007.
Oh, there you go.
They were one of Calgary or one of Western Canada's first crowdsourcing companies. Their whole thing was about building a platform like they're talking about with the Angels, the Angel Guild. So it's interesting to hear them bring that back. Like they started talking about it, I was like trying not to laugh because I'm like,
yeah,
I have heard many of these things before.
Right.
Why I bring up like having a read of the book is so I was hired to do content. I was writing content for them, and I came in and the guy who ran the company, he's like, I want you to read these books. So he dumped this pile of books on me, and I'm like, okay. And I went home and spent about a week reading books, and I got done reading them, and I'm like, this company is going to fail. And then I spent a while trying to write content for them. It was a real interesting time. And eventually I was like, I don't think this works. Like, I'm probably the wrong guy for it. And I left, and not long after it did fail. And I think why it failed, I mean, there's probably a number of reasons, but one of the things to really keep in mind about crowdsourcing ideas is that there are a couple of characteristics that have to be in place for what they're talking about to function. Otherwise it falls apart.
Right.
So one is they have to have all the same information available to them. So everybody has to have the ability to get at the same level of information. The other is that they need to be able to independently get the opinion and then collectivize it. So they do not want, like, one of the things that really cannot happen is that the nodes, if to break this down into and sound very robotic about it, if all the people are nodes, right? All the voters are nodes. They have to be independent from each other. They cannot share their opinion. And you have to be able to collect all of their opinions and then put that data together and look at it. So it'd be interesting to have a look at how they're running this, because clearly there's been some success. But one of the things that breaks that down is if people are communicating with each other, because they're influencing each other's opinion then.
Well, what they said is it's available to them on this app. The 21 movies are available, and the information basically about the movies that they don't get the budget, and they don't get anything but just the movie. Just watch the movie. You don't know who directed it. You don't know who's starring in it. You don't know what the budget is. Just watch the movie. And the questionnaire that they put is, how disappointed would you be if we did not pick this movie up?
Yeah.
And that's the way they phrase it. That way, it's not like a value judgment. It's just basically how disappointed would you be? Very disappointed, not that disappointed, or or would you be totally devastated if this wasn't picked up by us? And what they look for is the very high rated and ones that were a whole bunch of people's like, man, if you guys don't pick us up, it's the end of the world, And that's what they're looking for. When they see something gets knocked out of the park like that, then they move it to the top of the pile. And they explain that later on. But basically what they're doing is it's like a double-blind study. The way the scientific method works is you have the people that get the product, the people that don't get the product, and basically nobody knows who got the product or not, but only the people that are conducting the study know who got the product.
Well, the one problem is that this does venture somewhat into the sociological murk, and it does so in a couple of ways. Right. One, it's self-reporting, so it's not really a double blind because the people are making a choice about what they're getting.
Yeah,
and the other is, and this is not that big a deal, but I would wonder, like, how do you make sure that you're constantly growing the body of angels, so to speak? Is that people who know about them, who like what they're doing, that's its own form of filtering.
Mm-hmm.
So the only people who join the guild are people who like what they've done and like the way they're doing it, and so on, right? And when
confirmation
the wisdom
bias.
of crowds, yeah, exactly. In the wisdom of crowds, part of like one of the examples of this, this wisdom that they claim is when they get people at a carnival to guess the weight of a goat. And so it's just anybody comes along and they see the goat and they take a guess. And in the background of that, they collect all of the guesses and they basically build a curve out of it. And they go, right in the middle of the curve, where the bell tops out, is this amount of weight. And it was in like 3 or 4 ounces. It was within that of the goat. Yeah. And so that's where the whole idea
jelly beans
began, right?
They did like a jar of jelly beans, and
he brings that up in the book.
How many? Average.
They guess how many are in there. And
they're usually within 1 or 2 beans by the end of it.
Yeah, it's hyper accurate.
And there's actually a television show that was based on this, and I actually liked it. Jeremy Piven starred in it. It was pretty good. But of course it didn't catch on, but too bad. It's one of the, it's like, if I like it, it's not going to catch on, but it is what it is. I guess I'm not part of the popular people, but the thing about it is though, is he was like, in that show, it was like based on these concepts, and it was just presupposing that if you get a wide variety of opinions that are just basically just giving their opinion, then when you like collate all that information, eventually you will arrive at a overarching truth that you can use and you can utilize, and here we're in an independent space here. Mainstream's pretty much thrown this to the wind, and just if they do like viewings of their movies or whatever, they pick people from LA, the LA bubble, to come watch this movie.
Right.
And then they wonder why people in Heartland, when LA people liked it, and people in Heartland are like, oh.
But keep in mind that you guys were talking earlier about the ESG things creeping in.
Yeah.
If we hold that to be true, and I think there's a lot of evidence for it, if we hold that to be true, then the crowd isn't what they're basing this on. No. They have a different agenda or a different master, so to speak, that is dictating what they should put out, especially if we're talking
well,
about
of course.
top level, society building, top level cultural building. Then they don't care whether anybody likes
that becomes
that's
that becomes propaganda.
Yeah.
Well,
if you tell a lie
really good
often
example
enough,
of that,
people will believe it.
Yeah, right.
Now, a really good example of that, what you just described, the best is Star Wars.
Yeah.
Okay, because they know these banks that. So if you're going to make a multi-$100 million movie, you know exactly who's going to direct it and write it and produce it.
Yeah.
And because you're not a fool, you're not going to. Logically, you wouldn't give your money to these people if you knew who they were. So my point is, they know they're not worried about the market.
Well,
and they destroy it on purpose.
Well, when you see what happened the second season of Mandalorian, the finale, they said, John Favreau is basically left alone to this thing. It was pretty much like his baby, and he gave them. He basically reversed a lot of the damage they did to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. They made him. They brought him in. He was powerful. He was like, a badass Jedi master. He was serene. He was present. He was in control of himself. And I watched videos. I got really fascinated watching like reactions to this one scene on the internet over and over again. And there's people literally weeping because that's what they wanted. And I'm like, I knew exactly when I saw what was happening. I'm like, holy crap, this won't stand.
Star Wars theory cried on the camera.
Exactly. And I was like, this won't stand because this is precisely what everybody, even the people that are pro like KK Star Wars, even them, they wanted this. Everybody wanted this that loved Star Wars. Because that's what we wanted. We wanted Luke Skywalker we were expecting at the end of Return of the Jedi. And there he was.
Marketing-wise, I
of
think
course
that
they
there's
erased
a
it
thing,
immediately thereafter.
There's a thing I think where
Go ahead.
And maybe Crown knows, maybe both of you guys know what this is called, where they will pepper really cool things that they know that we want. And then they'll stop. Right, and it's
bait and switch.
They're dangling the carrot a little bit, kind of a deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, look what they did. Negged.
What's that?
It's like negging someone, right? Like, right? You're basically giving them a certain amount of what they want and then taking it away, because when you've led them far enough down the path. Then you can take it away, and that longing will exist now forever, or until it shows up. So now you've hooked someone in this.
Lower their self-esteem enough. Lower their self-esteem, basically.
What will they tolerate?
To where they're more pliable.
Exactly.
Yeah,
look at the end of look what they did with The Force Awakens. Everybody was hoping to see the big three: Luke, Leia, and Han rejoin. Everybody wanted to see that. Freaking Luke Skywalker didn't enter until the last 5 minutes of the whole freaking movie and didn't have a line. He just came in there, he was a badass, and then that was it. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
People loved it.
That turned out to be a bait and switch.
Oh yeah, it was a big time bait and switch.
I have no idea what that means.
I'm wondering if you're drinking booze.
No, I got iced tea. Maybe that's worse. I don't know.
It looks like a Black Label.
It is. It's whiskey.
That iced tea looks like a Black Label there. Yeah.
That's yeah.
I don't think they make a lot of
Texas tea.
Juice box style whiskey or bourbon. That's probably a bad idea.
Hey, that'd be great. Yeah. Hey, that's $1 million idea. Come on, Jack Daniels, make a juice box version of
just
sour
Capri
mash
Sun
with
bag.
bourbon. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Capri Sun with a little straw.
It sells itself.
Yep.
Anyway.
Right.
But the thing about the independent space though is like they were saying, we can pivot, we can change, we can. We're basically, we're setting something up here. We're on the early stages that, we can see from their mistakes, and we can or see things that they used to do right that they no longer do, and we can do those things, And one of those things was they used to have a cross section of America that they asked opinions from, and then they started weighting the scales. Go ahead, Gron.
Well, they still do, right? Like they're still doing, like Nielsen and all that is still doing what it does. It's just clearly that whatever choices are being made with that data, it went away from trying to get a popular show on or trying to get something to hit and stay on for a certain period of time to some other agenda. And it's tough to tell. Like, and I don't even have, I'm not trying to put on my tinfoil hat and say they're doing X. It's more like, I don't understand what they're doing often. It doesn't make any sense.
You have a situation that was pretty much proven as reality with the Disney bots. That was done by the master of the TDS, his research, which took him a while to do, but he was meticulous about it. And where you had these bots were basically influencing or giving the impression that the crowd wanted this over here behind door number 3, when in reality, what's behind door number 3 is a big, steaming pile of dog crap. What they wanted is behind door number 2 or maybe door number 1. But no, we got to have all these bots and all these people, all these minions come together and try to influence these studios through quote unquote social media. Oh, look at all these people. They're wanting this and they don't like this and they want you to do this. So they're basically fraudulently influencing.
Well, one thing I don't understand about that, though. One thing I don't understand about that, though, is the statistical probabilities. You see this all the time, where they will try to, especially in bots and things like that. If you see too much of the same opinion on one thing, then you know something's artificial. And because people are people, you're always going to have outliers. And if you see something without an outlier, without any kind of variation, then you know it's artificial. And they never. I thank God they haven't learned. They haven't learned that lesson, because if they ever learned that lesson, we'll never know what anything is. But you can always tell what a true crowd thinks. It's because you're always going to have a variation of positive, negative, in betweens. You're always going to have some kind of variation. And so a true crowd opinion is always going to have you're always going to have to average extremes, basically. Because you're always going to have people that hate everything. Okay. And thank God for those people, because if you see anything that doesn't have those people, then you know it's false. World burn. Okay. And they're out there. And if you don't see them, then you know it's wrong. Go ahead.
I mean, the only thing I'd say with that is that we're entering into a very weird time, though, where I don't know if I don't have a percentage, but I might say that on any given video that gets more than a cursory number of views on YouTube, that the bulk of the comments are not human beings. Like they're not real.
That much, huh?
Well, there's so many weird patterns I've noticed. Like if you go to look at, like, here's a game you could play if you're out there. Go to any popular song, like on YouTube, like the official video of it, and look under the comments at how quickly you find someone who says, this song was my mother's favorite. She died in 2020. I always remember her. That formula of comment, I literally see it on every song video that I've looked at on YouTube. Everywhere. And if it was just somebody saying like, oh, somebody passed away and they love this song and it reminds me of them, I'd be like, oh, okay, that's life. There's a lot of people passing away. But it's always the same format, right? Well, they'll name a specific member of their family.
Yep.
They'll give you the precise date that they died. They'll tell you that it was their favorite song, and then some, personal, pseudo personal comment. I see it everywhere. And I'm like, this has to be some machine which is running in a deep basement somewhere, and it has weird protocol. Like, it's got some mission that I don't understand, and it just goes around to music, and it's like, it rolls the dice. So its little mechanical Turk brain rolls a few dice, and it's like, an ant in the last 18 months from cancer, and favorite song, and puts that out. It's freakish.
Do you think that people that let's say you're a music creator, you would actually, just like buying a billboard, you would actually pay for this service to generate, right?
Yeah. And I wonder if part of what we're seeing, because I'm noticing the pattern.
Yeah, that's been proven. I've
the
been,
way they
I've
salt
had...
it, right? The way they salt the comments just hasn't reached a level of sophistication yet where it isn't totally apparent. So like they're working on getting it to a place where different kind of personal little notes will be added in, and they won't be so obvious.
Like Chat GTP.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful tool. It can do some incredible things. It's got a few like blind spots and what have you. There's a certain campaign that went live today that I was looking through the comments on its trailer, and I'm like, these do not sound like human beings. Like, this is a really weird. And I mean, that's not that particular person. That's kind of true of like everything I look at on YouTube, really. But I'm like, why would someone phrase this that way? Like, it's super awkward, and it's everywhere.
You know what it kind of reminds me of, in a larger kind of thinking about it, is in 1984. The news would say Eurasia is at war with Airship One, but you don't even know if there's even a Eurasia, or if there is a conflict, right? And it's like the things like you're describing almost are like complete, like the space that generates opinion is fake.
Yeah.
Well,
as long as it runs enough, then that's its only criteria. It just has to generate enough. And that's fine.
Well, this has been going on a while, because I mean, we went at war with Spain at one point because we had a ship that blew up in the harbor, and it turned out it was a bowler accident. But the press was able to roll that into.
That was Hearst. Like, he was obsessed with it.
Randolph Hearst, right?
Yeah.
And so this has been going on. This is the same formula for a long time, but so. Here we are in the independent space, okay, and we can pivot. We can do things, we can do things that they no longer do, and we can also do things new in a new way. And so, how do we take that wisdom of the crowd and you benefit the independent creator?
Well, part of it, I think, one of the things to really take to heart, because it's stuck with me ever since I watched it happen in 2007.
Yeah.
Because one of the rules that Surowicki was talking about in the book is that independence, the independence of the nodes, and then the collation of the data. You needed to be able to keep people separate. And so this call that goes out to build a community is a really interesting conundrum, right? Like, this is a real almost contradiction in some ways, because the moment you start building a community, there will be these collective ideas that emerge in that community and draw people to them. So much so that they actually abandon their own independent personal thought in order to tribe up, right? That tribalistic tendency.
Right.
So the only thing I could say really would be, it may be worth looking at building your community, but with an independent style. Yeah, definitely. Definite air quotes. So rather than using tools like wide funnel content marketing to pull people in, where you're pulling from a pool of one of those large ideas. You go down to the bottom and you build from the bottom up, which will be far slower, right? Unfortunately.
Here's a good example of what you're describing. So you tell people that, hey, you're making a comic book. You tell your cousin or something, right? And they're like, hey, well, you got to get on Facebook. And I'm like, well, actually, I know you think there's a zillion people on Facebook, but all the people that are buying my comic are on Twitter in the Comicsgate realm. And that's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah.
You can go on Facebook and plug your book, but they're not really going to be looking for you.
I mean, it might be worth it if you were going to do, like, if you had a threshold where you're like, okay, I'll get on Facebook and I'll make ads essentially that target people who go into comic groups, and I know that I'll spend like $200 a month. Like, if you were like, that's how much I'm prepared to sort of throw at that particular problem. The handy thing about Facebook's ad platform is that you can define that spend over that time, make a good ad, and then you're like, okay, whatever it does,
really,
it does. And it, you'd want to watch it and look at the key metric there is ROAS. You might have heard this term before. I just like saying it because it sounds funny. ROAS, return on ad spend, is essentially you're essentially it's a metric for like how much money did your spend get you, right? And you got to define that a certain way, but it lets you know, okay, we spent $200, but did it get me $1,000 worth of people buying the comic? That kind of straight line. It's not that straight, but
it's like ROI, return on investment.
Same idea.
Yeah.
ROI is usually like a broader, like high level thought kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, the ROAS is more like write down on your ad kind of thing. That might be a useful thing because there's a lot of people who do make groups on Facebook talking about art and comics. It might not. It might not get you anything.
To your point, though, what I would say is, and I'm not a marketing guy at all, but if you're going to do an FMC campaign or you're going to do an Indiegogo campaign, right? These are typically CG venues, right? But if you're going to do a Kickstarter, and the people in Kickstarter are different than the people, then using that thing you just described sounds like an excellent idea.
And one of the ways, so like Nick Axe, the artist who's working on RJ's stuff, he and I have been talking about his own book, and we've been talking about these kind of ideas of like, do you go to Facebook? Do you touch on these people? Blah blah blah. But why? Like, what would be the point of that? And in a kind of ground up way, from the bottom up, we've been talking about a lead into a campaign. Call it, I suggested 6 months, and he was like, that's too long. And we spent a while arguing about that, and we never landed on a number. But we picked a time, and it was like, okay, in that time running up to your campaign, is it about, what's the goal? Is it about showing people content and story from the book that you're going to put out and enticing them in, and then trying to get them onto, say, a mailing list, and then on that mailing list regularly putting out content that way that hypes them up, gets them ready for it, keeps them pulled into your funnel, and then that way when it goes live, you're able to email out to that list and say like, hey, the campaign's up. During the campaign, you're able to hit that list and say, hey, anybody that hasn't purchased, you're hitting them, and you can control that from the mail side of things. Well, the value of that means that you're getting a fairly non-intertwined audience because they're kind of getting that unicast from you. They're just getting the email. It's not like they're hanging out in a forum or anything like that. I mean, that's just a tactic, right? Or even just a strategy at that high enough level that potentially could work. But there are drawbacks from it as well. So, I mean, where I'm going here with this is just there are ways to utilize all these tools to pull people in and get a bit of an independent, diverse group of people pulled up into a campaign that aren't necessarily all CG. So you're not having to rely entirely on that crowd. How many people do you get outside of it? Stuff to
hard
tell.
to say, right? Yeah.
But I mean, that
basically trying to diversify your reach.
And the crowd, like one of the problems with this market right now is there's not a lot of new readers, it seems, coming in. Now it's hard. I say that like instinctually, you know what I mean? Like I'm looking at who's sort of around when I look at streams and whatnot, and I don't see some of the new blood that could potentially be coming. But we want to grow the market. We want that market to get bigger and hopefully go from what seems to be about 150 to 200,000 people maybe, and get that up to like 500,000 if you can, because you're just talking about building the whole market, right? You want the whole market to grow. And so if you can build your campaign in a way that pulls it, maybe out of the 250 backers, you only pull 20 people. But if they're that aren't normally in the the CG or the independent comic world, but if you can pull 20 in every time, that market is slowly going to get bigger and bigger, and that I think would be the goal, right? To try and get the whole thing to have more people and more money and more opportunity in it.
I'll be right back. You guys.
Well, it's like there's some phenomenons that happen. No problem. But like Oliver Anthony, for instance, guy, just sings songs to his iPhone for a couple years, and he finally gets a good mic, and he's out in his backyard, he sings some of these songs that he's been working on for all these years. Thing goes viral, and because the crowd said, "This is what we want. We want this authenticity. We vibe with this." And suddenly he's got sold out. He goes from like nobody to sold out concerts. And I just saw a video where he's talking about renting a bus to go through the American Southwest for over $14,000 a month. And so evidently he's got that now. But he's talking about that evidently right now, he's going to be him. And evidently right now he is what people want. Understanding that this can change tomorrow. And so he's got a real good perspective on it. But that is the crowds are out there and they will tell you what they want. And while the mainstream isn't listening anymore, it behooves us, I'm sorry to use the word behooves, but it's the only word I can think of. But it just behooves us to keep our ears on and listen. Because I think there's a whole bunch of underserved or rarely served people out there that are just saying, pay attention to me. And the first person that pays attention to them is going to succeed. Go ahead.
Well, it's tricky with, an example like that guy, because clearly the fairy godmother music industry, when they see something that they know can blow up, they'll grab it. That's the nature of that industry. And it's tough. It's tough to avoid that entirely unless you go out of your way to consciously avoid it. Right. But your point about like people are, they're thirsty, and they've always been thirsty, and they're so thirsty. There's a line from the American president. They're so thirsty that they'll travel through the desert, and when they get to the mirage, they'll drink the sand. And there's something true about that. Like, I think John Wick, that first John Wick, was like an example of an old style of film that was very simple and had very little, as far as a narrative in it, but was gritty enough and straightforward enough and just not looking to be anything more than what it was. Came in and it blew up because people were like, they gravitated to this very simple idea and the action, and they liked it. And then they beat that horse to death. But that's neither here nor there. That's the film industry for you. But I think that's a reflection of it, right? If you can communicate to people something that is clear, that is in their interest, I think you're going to see a pretty shocking reaction. It's keeping it clear, right? That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And it's part of why, you saw me ranting on Luke's channel when I was on there. And a lot of where I was circling there was clarity. Like, what am I looking at and what does it mean to me? That's the thing that is troublingly not getting through in a lot of ways.
Right.
Easier said than
Right.
done, right?
Yeah,
Because,
it is easier said than done.
even like look at your famous your favorite famous filmmaker, right? Hit and bomb, and then they get a hit later on. And if it was easy to do, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's
it's
the
like,
William Goldman thing, right? Nobody knows what they're doing.
Right.
He's the guy who wrote Princess Bride and was a writer throughout, for years in Hollywood. He's like, nobody in Hollywood knows what they're doing. And
no kidding.
there's a certain truth to that where it's like, okay, sometimes you think like we've got this person in it and we got these things that, this action and these ideas, and we're going to put that out there, and good Lord, that just lost us $20 million.
There you go.
But
Kaboom.
to say it more accurately, though, it's we can competently make a thing that we think is going to work. Whether or not people react to it the way we want is unknown.
Well, and even when they think they do know, it blows their minds when it turns out,
Totally.
no clue.
Yeah.
Like the Princess Bride is a great example where no one knew how to market that film.
No.
Because they didn't get it. They did not understand it.
Or A Christmas Story. A Christmas Story, when it came out, I remember it was like this madcap kind of, the way it was advertised, it was just this crazy, batty, madcap thing. And but if they had pushed that as a coming of age, kind of like the nostalgia, movie would have flown. But
Michael makes a pretty good comment there
on people's television screens before it became big. Same with Wizard of Oz.
Oh, locking up.
Oh, sorry. We'll bring it up.
Latency.
Yeah, because I think Michael's saying, they want a great news story, right? And I think generally that is a really great way to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to focus your purpose, right? A great news story. And there is a thing where people go, maybe sometimes they don't want gritty, they want glamour, right? And that's the unknown. But the story itself of, let's just say it's Luke Skywalker, right? The story of the hero and his tale of growing into who he's going to be, right? That's you don't know if that's going to work or not, because the second you do Star Wars, then people, they go, okay, I get it, I want something else now, because I wrap my head around that.
Look how many Star Wars clones that came out in the next decade of people trying to find out what happened there. But
it was hilarious. Like space, right? People like space. No, it's robots. People like robots. No, wait a minute. It's got to be sword fighting. You're like, no, none of that.
Here's Battlestar Galactica.
Well, part of that too, like when you talk
Airplane
about
2.
when you talk about the clones of Star Wars, one of the things that I've always noticed is the potency of the characters.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they boiled down Darth Vader in a way that was amazing. Right. And Luke is not complicated. Luke is a simple character, right?
He's a farm boy.
And he's a farm boy. So it's almost like, but I think it was Ralph McQuarrie who designed Darth Vader. I could be wrong, but it's awesome, right? And it's it when you see it, right? And it works undeniably. And so that's pretty hard to do. Let's face it. If it was easy to do, Ridley Scott would have made a Star Wars version 2, and he would have had his own deal doing it, but he couldn't do it. Right.
You know what the funny thing about that is too? This is just my own film nerdism coming out right now, but it's so often it's that they're trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Right. You can tell they're desperately trying to like weld something onto it
right.
They're like, well, we got to make Vader, but he's got to be like a different kind of Vader. Do you know who, like when I first saw Vader, he scared the hell out of me.
Oh yeah.
And the next time I really found a character like that was Sugar from No Country for Old Men.
Right.
And hilariously, it's because they had a very similar characteristic. where they wouldn't do anything.
Right.
They were just dead, right? Like their expression, like Sugar's expression is just dead the whole time. Like he just has this kind of like half-lidded, grim, and it almost never changes. Like it's funny when he's talking to the guy in the gas station, and he almost chokes on the peanuts, and it's like the most like emotive he seems to be throughout the whole thing because he finds this story so ridiculous. But anyway, it's so simple, and I think that's one of the big failings that a lot of like creators go through is they try to make too much instead of, as you said, boiling it down, bring it down and compress it into what is that one thing that you can rely on in the character. And like Vader, because you couldn't see his face, he's just this there's no emotion, there's nothing. He's just this statue standing in front of you, and you're not sure when he's going to choke you from across space, right? and there you go. That's a pretty bold move, right? But a very primary color.
I would also say in that case, it's a visual, it's a skull. So it's a shiny black skull, right? That's has tech.
Yeah.
And when you walk up to an artist and you say, okay, design my character, right? It's going to be a challenge, and it's good. I don't know if George Lucas picked it out or if it was a one-shot deal.
I don't know if he did anything. Just bagging on him's fun.
I know his wife did a lot.
Well,
it's just to pick up on Bancroft's point, though.
Before we get in trouble, all right, let's go ahead.
Yeah, I'll change topics for us a little bit here.
Go ahead.
Just to go back to Bancroft's point there about like, are they looking for a great new story, or that what are they looking for? I think this is part of why, my recommendation to Axe about and the things I was saying to Luke on his stream about finding your target audience, or at least thinking of a target audience, imagining that and forming that audience, and then putting that offering out to the audience. And it's that little nibble of, is this what you're into? Does this interest you? Okay, now you can come in. And I'm not going to try to bombard you. I'm just going to give you that little bit and invite you in. And that's how you're going to get those people who are interested in what you're doing to come in and try to filter out the people who might incidentally come in, who are never going to buy your book, right? Or back a campaign. Because it's really hard. It's part of some of the things I've wondered about what Disney does these days. I wonder if it is their own kind of social filtering. Much like the spelling mistakes in a spam email, it's a way of getting past to the people who will have a problem with it. They're already out and gone out of that that segment you're building, and the people who are in, they like it, and now you can ride that rail all the way to the end.
Right. I mean, I've noticed this among. I'm no expert in crowdfunding. I've only done one campaign. Right. These guys have done multiple campaigns, but I've seen a lot of people launch their books and they have no ramp up.
Yeah.
And and everybody's going to have a different way of ramping up,
totally.
Because we all
lots of ways.
Like, let's say you're like the mega writer of CG or something, right? I mean, your way of doing it is going to be different than my way, right? Because I'm a 2D, 3D artist, right? But whatever that way is, I mean, I would think that you just don't ninja launch unless you're Kenneth Rocafort or something, right? I mean,
and even then, how you got to ask, like, how different would the campaign have been, or bigger even maybe, if it had some runway before it started. And I see a lot of people who are just like, the first time I ever heard of them or ever saw anything was they put a campaign live and then they just started jumping on streams trying to rattle the jar of coins, with no ramp up really. And then it's like, well, what are you going to get out of that? You're not going to get much of anything, even if you have a unbelievable campaign and you've got like crazy high quality art. Maybe you get there, but
thou art the man, Shadowpunk. Thou art the man.
Well, but you're right though. That likely percentage wise, you're not going to get there. right? Yeah, I mean, but Kenneth also he has mileage. Or what's the right word? Right? He has credibility among people that buy comic books already. So when he launches, he's already proven to the people that bought number one
Yeah.
that it's fucking kick ass. Right. So
Well,
he's gonna sell number two.
Kenneth knows who his audience is. And Kenneth he sells to his audience. He knows who his audience is. He's got the Roca Force for a reason. Okay. And he does very little promotion outside. The Roca Force pretty much promotes for him, but he knows who his audience is, and he's got his acolytes, and they do the work. But because it's because it's language barrier. Okay, it's not laziness on his part. He's a hell of a worker, but the language barrier's there. He doesn't really go on a lot of streams, but because he's got these people who are just like absolutely devoted to his work because he's cultivated over years. But the bottom line, though, is, the crowd is out there, and crowd is telling us what they want, and they're wanting somebody to listen to them, and they're wanting somebody to give them what they want, and they will reward people who give them what they want because the crowd has its own wisdom. Okay, now, so the bottom line for all of this, we can like quibble on the details and everything, but here's us, the creators. And there's the crowd. And the crowd knows what they want. And it's up to us to figure out what that is and make that connection. And we can do that as independent creators. The mainstream's just dropped the ball on that. I've seen dozens of fantastic campaigns fail. You need to be somehow getting people's mind before going live, or they're going to go back to book. It's very tricky. Very tricky.
Well,
but once again, that's the burden's on you. It's not on the crowd. The crowd doesn't have to come to you. They don't. The mainstream.
Well, it's not even. I don't even know if I would say it's a question of that they don't have to come to you.
It backwards.
How could they?
But
how could they?
How could they? Right?
If they don't know that you're not doing it.
Yeah, like it's not like this isn't magic, right? Like you actually have to. This is why when I advocate to people about forming a target audience and forming a marketing idea, like a marketing plan or a communication plan, and all this, it's all about the fact that they are out there, and they will be the ones who, through their approbation or through their dollar, are going to be the ones that put the stamp on you. It's their imprimatur is what you're looking for, right? But if you can't get it in front of them for that evaluation and that choice to be made, it doesn't matter. It's just in the dark.
It goes to the old saying that the WEF leader of X said it's yes, you have freedom of speech, just not freedom of reach. You need to reach your audience.
Yeah. Well, and to Bancroft's point, how many great campaigns, like people who were really talented, they made great art, they got a great story. That unfortunately is the cautionary tale of all creation and all creativity, is that there are plenty of broken bones built into the highways of all of this, made of people who did something great but did not get it to the audience, did not find a way to communicate, didn't make it clear, whatever. Any of those hurdles, any of that friction that keeps people from being able to understand what it is and get to it.
One thing I would bring up, because as a creator, and I went through this process, to make a book is a Mount Everest trek.
It's a nightmare.
Right? And you have to pull out all stops to get the quality of the product that you want to focus on doing it. So it's the challenging part is that most artists are not marketing people.
No.
And so the things we're talking about here that you bring up so well, those are like, well, you want me to hand glide off of Everest now? Right? I mean, it's one of those things where it's just, it's a tricky.
My fault. Sorry, fired.
It's outside the toolbox, right? And CG is full of people. Michael's an excellent example of somebody who's a really good communicator, right? He's likable too. Okay, don't get a big head, Michael. But I mean, you and other people like that too, where they have really Mandy's a good one. She can communicate to her audience really well, right? Ethan's another one. There's a bunch of people. A really good example of this would be Joe Sontag. Okay, awesome product. Okay, but he also is got the DJ voice, and he's good at it. He can talk, and so that is a skill that the normal artist who's been doing this their whole life doesn't normally have. Right. So in my mind, if there was one thing I could change about indie comics and CG, is that if there was people like Crom who you could pay them whatever, they could give you a plan, a simple plan that here's how you get your book out. Not a big book. Not a huge giant list, but a simple 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plan or something like that. Right.
That is currently in the
building.
works, right, Crom? That's what he's building.
If you do it though, I mean, I hope you benefit from it, because the normal artists will benefit huge.
Yeah, the goal, like when I thought about how to pull this off, not to just toot my own horn, but just to give you a sense of what I think is the way to go here, that's the intelligent and useful way to do this, is that I'm building the what I call the campaign playbook, because everything's a playbook. Can't help ourselves. And then I'm going to be doing live streams about the components of the playbook. So the idea here is, okay, here first is the written material, basically an ebook on pre-campaign, live campaign, post-campaign. Pick your slice that you're going to work in for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Here's how to go with it. And then the streams to follow up with that are, okay, today we're talking about building your target audience. Today we're talking about building your marketing plan. And those are the kind of things that should only be an hour or two out of your week to come up with something that is straightforward and simple, and then a plan you've got to execute on. Because it shouldn't be more complicated than that, really, in the grand scheme of things. Well, you can get crazy, but you don't need to.
To that point, I would actually reinforce what you said, because a lot of people on these talk shows, they're great talkers, okay, but they can go on and on.
Oh, and I can.
We don't. Happening. But my point is, when the artist he has no effort, he has no energy to sift through hours of dialogue to figure out what the thing is going to be. So simple is better for us. Yeah. So
and one of the other things to consider too, this is just sort of a side note from what you were saying there, is I don't know if you've heard of Tracy Butler. Tracy Butler made a comic called Lackadaisy Cat.
Okay.
It's like a 1930s bootlegger story, but all the characters are cats.
Okay.
It's very cute, and it appeals to a certain target audience.
Oh, okay.
No one saw this person's face until it was well into being a success. So the strategy, there was a particular strategy that she used to get an audience, to build them up and to bring them to the level that she needed, and her Patreon and all this. That's totally available to people. I think part of what gets people coming in, or who are kind of new to CG, or CG is how they learned, how they've come in and processed how to do this, is that there's a lot of steps they think you have to do because it's the only way to do it. Right? Like, you got to get a YouTube channel, and you got to build your audience up to, a certain amount, and you got to do this, and you got to blah, 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 blah. And yeah, as you say, if they're not particularly flamboyant or, charismatic on camera, maybe they don't have a camera, maybe they can't put together even the basic production level to do it that way, which that's life. It feels like, well, okay, the only path I had is now gone. And that is not the case. There are many ways to eat this elephant and to skin this cat and to come up with more metaphors. And part of what my hope would be is to build.
I've got that link, by the way.
A skeleton.
If anybody needs it.
I'd love to see it. Yeah. Totally. I'd love to see it. Yeah. There's plenty of ways to do this. And my goal here would be to put myself in the position of maybe a Patreon. Maybe that's the way to do it. Where it's like, okay, most anybody that wants to hear about what I'm talking about, it might cost them $50 a year to have to hear all if they want to hear it for a year. It depends on how long they want to go for.
Right.
But the whole point here is to put the power of a marketer available to everyone in CG without them having to pay what a marketer costs.
Right.
Because, you know, a marketing campaign, here's a pretty standard number. You know that I was talking about conversion, Coop, when I was talking about the 4%? That number is hilarious because it's kind of everywhere.
Right.
It keeps showing up. Do you know what do you know what most marketing agencies would tell you should spend for marketing?
How much?
Wow.
4% of your gross sales.
Wow.
Right? That number just keeps coming out of the woods, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, how many people, you know, if you do like $100,000 campaign, can you afford to take 4% of that campaign and throw it at marketing? Probably not. I mean, it'd be good if you could, you know, it might be worth saying to people like, hey, try to build some sense of like, if your campaign hits X, you have this much spend, you know, that kind of thing, you know, put that in front of yourself. But that it's tough to plan for that. Right. So it could be like, okay, we can't take $4,000 here and or whatever the hell, I don't remember what number I just said, but we can't take a certain amount of chunk of money and put it towards that. It's just not available. And I've seen like a smaller retail business here in Calgary that I was working with went to a pretty big marketing firm, and they were like, yeah, you know, we're thinking of taking this out of the, you know, 2 people who work here who also control our social media, you know, that level. And we want to step up into the real level, the big boy level, because we're starting to make, you know, millions and millions of dollars. And that they were like, okay, well, we're going to need $250,000 because that's like around where your money is at right now. And you're like, oh, okay, let me just 250. Let me just check. Like,
yeah.
What are you kidding me?
Let me pull that out of my pocket.
I'm sure I got that in the couch cushions.
How many?
You know? Yeah.
Even a functional business that's doing $2, $3, $4 million a year, it's not like they've got $250,000 that they're like, oh, whoops, we just didn't have a plan for that.
Yeah.
Like, so
just laying around.
So part of what I'm going through here is figuring out how to make these tools available at an absolutely reasonable level. And so some of that might just be informational and people got to run with it. But I'm also available just to hang my shingle out here in the middle of this conversation. But
fair enough. Yeah, for sure.
Well, on that note, we're running at we're a little over time. We're about an hour and a half. We'll go ahead and we'll close that out right there. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you once again, Crom. Never enough time, man. Never enough time.
Yeah, always enjoy coming on and ranting.
So much information. So much information.
Please like, follow, share, subscribe to everybody on this panel.
Well, we've got 95 eyes right now, so you know, maybe some of that'll translate.
And everybody like the stream on whatever platform you're on right now too.
Right. Tell everybody where they can find you, Crom.
Probably the easiest 2 spots. You can get me on Twitter. I'm at Crom RSB, or you can get me on my YouTube channel, which is Razor Sharp Balloons.
Nice.
Awesome.
Cool. How about you, Shadow Punk? Where can we find you, man?
I'm at Shadow Punk Comic on Twitter, and I just showed my new figure that I made. People can see it. It's about six and a half inches tall. It's kind of cool.
Oh wow!
Look at mega
that.
detail. One of the things. Oh, never mind. I won't get into it. And yeah. So I'm probably gonna be selling them to CG people if they're interested. I haven't figured out how much I'm gonna sell them for, but.
Nice.
Thank you. How about you, Wookie? Where do you find you, sir?
You can find me in the hottest place on earth in the desert near Mexico. Holy crap. No, on YouTube, you can find me at Wookie Fever Presents on YouTube, and also Wookie Fever Presents on Rumble. Wookie Fever Presents on X. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And also on Facebook as Wookie Fever Presents as well.
We are, me and Wookie have a show on Saturday nights that is going to be Rumble only. It's called the Wookie and Bunny Show. We're actually going through this video that I was showing a clip from. We're about halfway through, so there's part one. We just finished part one. I'm going to post it to YouTube a little while if it goes through all the checks of YouTube. If not, we'll cut out what we need to cut out. But that's going to be on Rumble on Wednesday, Saturday night, 9:00 Eastern Standard. Also, here at the Rabbit Hole, you can find me at Telepathic Bunny on X, Twitter or whatever. Pretty much Telepathic Bunny everywhere. I pop right up. There seems to be only one Telepathic Bunny so far. So I need to get that trademark, definitely. Anyway.
When I sell them, I'm going to be painting them unless somebody doesn't want that, they're all going to be like.
Well, I need to get you to I need you to make me a 3D figurine of Telepathic Bunny, Cotton Top, the mascot.
It is happening.
There. Anyway, got one more comment to go, and we will call it a day. Got to pull this back up. StreamYards is not cooperating. Come on now. Yep. Come on. Anyway, okay, that's a comment from Karam. Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt you.
Fingers got itchy when I saw
right.
All right, no problem. Anyway, so that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics. Thanks for visiting the Rabbit Hole. See you next time. Remember, follow the White Rabbit.
Have a good one.
Bye, everybody.
So I just want to bring this up to Crown because he